Let me start by saying, first and foremost, I'm very honored and privileged to be here with you all this afternoon. There was a time in my life I never thought I would see this day. It was young high school students that made it possible. When I went off to death row, they was the first person to come to see me. Students that was in high school decided one day not to go to school and learn about the criminal justice system. And when I went off to death row, they said, Shujaa, we're going to get you out of here. 2 little white kids. And I come down and I said, oh my God, my life is finished. I'm free if you will get the power of the state of California. My friends, here I stand. Wounded by the blows of capital punishment, but not slain. It is due to the power and determination of those young students that took the power in their own hands and went out and sold cookies and educated each and every one that would listen. Went to high schools, went to universities, went to churches. The next thing I know, I was back in court. But before I go into that, who am I? I'm Shujaa Graham. I was born and raised in a little small town called Lake Providence, Louisiana. I grew up under racism and segregation. I worked in the fields as a young man coming up, trying to help my parents make ends meet. I can remember as a young boy seeing the sign saying white on it. And due to the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, the signs came down. But I never saw a welcome sign. You just knew you didn't go into that particular store. Or if you went into that store, you went to the back, never the front. No matter how old you was, if you was African American, you had to say yes, sir, and no, ma'am, to an 18-year-old white kid. But my life in the South ended at the age of 11. But before I went off to California, my parents left me behind. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why would a parent go off 3,000 miles and leave 2 of her children behind. I didn't understand the economics at that particular time. But my parents went on to California. For the next 2 years, I stayed with my grandmother, which was a wonderful time, but it was a hard time. Think about being 8 years old, and all of a sudden your parents are 3,000 miles away and you left behind. I didn't know why. I thought because something was wrong with me, or they didn't like me. But I figured it out later, it was economics. So after being with my grandmother for about 2 years, we got a letter one day. I had graduated to the 6th grade, and we had this teacher named Miss Fluell, and I always like to tell that story. Ever since the 1st grade, I never wanted to be in her room. I was fearful of her. From the 1st grade, 2nd grade, and all of a sudden I graduated to the 6th grade, and things too went on to get to California. And I went up with all the teachers I could get. I got Miss Fluell, and I didn't want her because she'd stand with a fan down there, be on the car, she'd stand at the door. And you be late. You're going to get hit across your back. One day, I went home, and my grandmother, she learned how to read in the church, and she read the letter, and she said, son, you're going to California. I said, oh my God, Miss Fluell, you'll never hit me. I said, if you hit me, you're going to be good, because I'm going to be 3,500 miles away. Well, anyway, I moved to a little town, a big area called South Central Los Angeles, California. That was the ghetto. And therefore, my trouble began. I joined neighborhood gangs and participated in neighborhood gang activities. When I was 18 years old, I had spent over 3 years of my life in and out of juvenile hall, robbing, stealing, doing all the things that was wrong. Participated in the Watch Riot of 1965 in August, burned up our own cities. Then at the age of 18 years old, I went off to prison for my last time. And I don't know, many people had tried to touch me and change my life, to get out of the game, but no one could. It wasn't until I was 18 years old and I was chained up with a man called Yassin Muhammad. This was in 1970 or 1969. And he started teaching me to respect self and love self and study, read, learn history. I thought, man, I don't want to learn about those. This is nothing good in history saying about my people. And he encouraged me. He said, read and you'll find something. Then I started reading about African peoples and contributions that they made to society. From that day on, I never looked back. I was always interested in learning more and more. So after I got to prison, I got out of prison gangs and joined a political movement for social justice, human rights in prison, trying to organize black, white, and brown prisoners to come together under one confederation. And as a consequence of that, in 1973, I had been in prison for 3 years. I come in when I was 18 years old. Yes, I was in a political movement, standing up against racism, standing up against the bullies. And you would think I would have been a good prisoner. God would have looked upon me as doing something good, but they didn't. So November 27, 1973, it was an uprising in that particular prison because of racism and the brutality that was going on.